how are you feeling about the way your team's responded so far this week in practice? And what kind of challenges does the Duke offense present?
Well, big question, double question. Okay, I think that they're really good shape. Going through, they're really excited about practice this week. They came out with a good attitude yesterday. It was really good up-tempo practice today. We're trying to take a little bit of the banging off, but they just feel like it's one of those weeks that they want to hit a little bit more on it. As for Duke, they're explosive everywhere on offense. You know what I mean? It all goes back to based off the run game. They got two extremely good backs that can both move and hit, and they're kind of different styles. You know what I mean? So you got to play them a little bit different. At least to give the guys some awareness. Where 20 he can get in there and he can bounce and he can exert anywhere, and 4 is going to run the ball downhill at you. So they have a really good 1-2 punch that sets up their run game. After that, the quarterback's the dude now. He's been having a great year. He's thrown a ton of touchdowns and no interceptions at all. So he's a challenge, and they got good receivers. So it's overall, they're solid up front. They're a good team.
How pleased were you with the way your team came out against Delaware, focused and pretty much took care of business last Saturday?
Yeah, that was a good thing too. It's these guys really have accepted hey, this is how they want to do things. You know what I mean? They embrace just the process of going through practice and preparing themselves, and then as they go out on the field, what happens is what happens. You know what I mean? They understand that. So as long as we're all doing our job and we're doing it, then you hope that that's the kind of result that maybe when you're playing a non-Power 5 team, and so I think that their standard and the upperclassmen do a fantastic job holding the young guys accountable and not letting them, just do what you do. If we do what we do, we'll be okay.
Was there a little bit of a letdown once the Blue Hens scored a touchdown?
I don't think so. I think it kind of made the guys play a little hard. You know what I mean? They were like, this is crazy. Let's go get after. And that was one of those things where communication error, and it kind of leads to whatever, and then it happens, and you say, okay, hey, get them back, calm down. This is what, and some of the guys are like, okay, then now we need to go even harder. So it was good.
Only allowing 2 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. What lessons can the team take away and kind of take into this?
Really, what we've been doing a good job of is staying on top of routes. If you don't give up chunk plays on defense, then it's hard for the offense to score. If a team will go 12 or 15 plays and they score on that drive, you kind of say, hey, good job. You guys got us on that one, and we didn't have an opportunity to make a play, or they didn't mess up. A lot of times those are the things. You see when people score, it's because they're getting big chunk plays, and then especially if they get a chunk play and they score on the chunk, because then you don't even have an opportunity to play in the red zone. And, it's just, hey, if we can keep doing that and keep saying, okay, not be as worried about, hey, well, we called this, and then they got 5 yards. Well, no one really cares. You know what I mean? It's just another play, right? And even if they got a first down, well, no one really cares, because the things that people don't see are they took a big-time shot over the top, and you're like, okay, well, we saved 45 yards on that play, even though they got 8. Okay, hey, that's a win for us, But they might move the chain. So as long as we continue to think like that and say, okay, hey, teams have to drive and they have to keep doing things right, and they won't mess up, and they don't allow us to make a play, you'd say, okay, we got a pretty good chance.
And Duke, against UNC this past weekend, had the game-winning play on a 13. How do you guys as a team just kind of prepare for that level of unpredictability and creativity in key moments like that, considering over the last kind of 2 years the Duke Wake game has gone to, a one-possession?
Yeah, I think everybody's got to be on, when it boils it down to really a lot of things, it's just about doing your job on your play and having your eyes right and doing, your piece of the job, and those things kind of handle themselves. I'm sure there'll be some trick plays in there. I'm sure they'll do some and it does come down to close games. So the team that really plays with the most discipline and can do the mundane over and over, don't get tired of playing the same defense. Don't get tired of doing the same job. Don't go to look to hunt to make a play. Just when the one's coming, just tackle the guy, And that can win you a lot of games, just doing that.
It was to the point you were making about chunk plays and, giving up a first down or giving up 5 or 8 yards. It doesn't really matter. Mid-third quarter, I looked at the first downs, and Delaware had 13 or 15 first downs. I was like, it does not seem like they've moved the ball that effectively.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it just lines up perfectly with what you're saying.
Yeah, sometimes they'll have some early drive starts that you take a hitch and then they get a whatever and it's a first. Well, okay. Well, guess what happened? It's still 1st and 10 from the minus 30 or the 35. Okay, well, you would take that. That's how a lot of drives start. You say, okay, well, just play ball again. And it's really about who's going to make the first play to either put them behind the sticks or move the ball a long way, and that's kind of the game of football right now.
One of the really cool things, I'm sure from a coach perspective, when you have a game that's 52-14, is that you get to play some younger guys down the stretch.
Yeah.
I noticed Miles Turpin making a lot of plays. Was there anybody else that really showed you something during that period of time?
I think Cam Hardy did a pretty good job. He was out there running around doing some good things, throwing some pass rush stuff, and but sometimes trying to do pass rush stuff, on some other downs too. But no, it was good to see those guys just be able to get a chance to go out there and make a tackle. See Witt have a tackle, and to see some of the guys run around and just go play football. It's always good for those guys to get real game reps because then they can prepare themselves into the off season to see. Hey, I really do need to train. I did, I was in not a very good stance and the guy beat me up, or I didn't have my eyes in the right place and they ran through my, those kind of things. It's great teaching lessons for the future. All right, thanks all. Happy Thanksgiving.
Langston, what have you noticed on the film you guys have studied against Duke? What has you excited and intrigued about this Saturday's matchup?
I think definitely it's going to be a good test for us. I think they have a great offense, great quarterback who's had a great season so far. I think he leads the conference in touchdowns, receiving, and passing yards. Young running back, and he looks very explosive, and also a good mix with the number 4. He's a good power back. I think I always like to go against teams with tight ends who are physical. I think tight ends have been a good challenge for us, and so I think that overall it's just going to be a good competitive game for us on defense. And I think we're just looking out there to get go out there and do what we do and have a good performance.
How do you guys feel through 11 games? We kind of look through the trajectory of the season, and most every week you can kind of check off the box and okay, we did what we're supposed to do.
Right.
Like last week, you stayed focused, you took care of business, and this week it's a Big 4 matchup in Durham. How you guys feeling, I guess, now at 8-3 with the week to go?
I think overall, I guess the team morale is good. We're high, but the thing is, we still have, even though we have one more regular season game, we have the bowl game and everything, so we still have a lot more weeks out here at practice. And so today was just another hard work day. Tuesday practice like normal, and like I said, we're ready just to go out there and of course a Big 4 matchup, and we want to have a good good showing for the fans and in this regular season on the high.
Coach Hazelton mentioned that they were wanting to kind of tamp down the hitting today, but you guys didn't seem too up for that. You wanted to still hit people.
Yeah, I think we did 2 of our scout periods with pads and took off the pads, and a lot of guys are saying you might as well just leave them on and finish off the practice, but sports science and everything has us take them off, so it works out. It's all good.
How would you just kind of describe the mentality of this defense heading into Saturday?
I think it's been the same all year. I think we've had a few games or a game or two that we've kind of slipped up, but the first thing we do, we get back in and we talk and watch the tape. So I think it's the same mentality. We want to fly around, get 11 guys to the ball, physical hitting, running around the field. I think that's our identity we made from the beginning of the season. We've been able to hold up to it, pretty good throughout the year so far.
Sure. And you mentioned slip-ups. I'm curious if there's anything that you feel like you've personally learned from those kind of earlier season games that you're taking into Saturday.
I think sometimes people talk about pressing to make plays or something like that. I think that was one thing that we discussed early on, throughout spring ball, throughout camp, and just we always want to make sure we do our jobs. And I think there was a specific game, I forgot which game, but Digger said that he felt like it was a game we all just did our job. We don't care who gives the credit for this play and that play, and I think it's been really good for us because that's what we've been holding on to. We know we have guys all around the field who can make plays, and whoever's chance it is to make that one play, we trust them to make that one play.
Langston, Coach would not like me asking this, but have you had a chance yet to kind of reflect on the journey the last few months and kind of say, hey, I've kind of showed my ability a bunch. We're sitting at 8-3. This is a pretty good decision.
Right.
Have you had a chance to take a look at things from a macro level like that?
I think I kind of realized I made a good decision a long time ago, coming here and everything. But I think, like I said, we've had faith in ourselves since, spring ball. I think the message was really clear when I first got here with the coaches and everybody on the staff and even the players. We knew what we wanted to do. And like you said, like for that senior class, he knew that this wasn't going to be a year where we just, start the rebuild. Like we wanted to get out there and do what we can do early on. So that was the message from the beginning. So I knew that I made the right decision then, and I'm glad that's paying off throughout the season so far. But like I said, we want to get out there and finish on this regular season on Saturday, and then finish through the bowl game, and that's the goal.
From the player's perspective, when did it move from belief to really feeling the tangible results? Was there a moment in time where like the switch flipped and you're like, yeah, this is going as we thought it would?
Right. I think we really had a good camp this year. So I think throughout camp we knew that we were going to have a pretty solid defense, pretty good team.
Yeah.
And I think after that, the Georgia Tech game was a heartbreaker, and I think that we kind of looked at ourselves as a team. We knew that we want to be able to finish games like those, and I think probably I don't know if that's when the switch necessarily flipped. I think it really flipped during camp, but I think that that was just a scar moment that we didn't want to feel that feeling again. So we want to get out there and show we can do every Saturday, but also throughout the week in practice. So
a lot of Wake Forest fans will point to that game and say, "Oh, the Deacs really should be 9-2 right now.
Right.
Oh, they really should only have be towards the top of the conference standings." But I guess the other flip side of that coin is if you win that game, maybe you don't learn some of the same lessons.
Some of the mistakes.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think that like I said, we can only control what we can control. Unfortunately, it didn't go our way that time, but I think that, like you said, I think it worked out for us. We learned a lot about ourselves that game, and learned what we can be, and that's what we're trying to show for us this year and moving forward next year.
How much are you motivated by wanting to put kind of an exclamation point on the end of this first season for Jake?
Yeah, I think we definitely are motivated. I think every Wake fan knows kind of what happened last year, and even like I said, my brother's been here last year, so I saw the game and everything, and of course we don't want to. We want the fans. Of course, they're probably happy with what we've done so far, but we have a lot more goals for ourselves. But we all know how important this last game is against the other team. We want to go out there and show what we can do.
You talk about goals and the team. The awards come out next week. Why does your head coach? Everybody hyped up Wake Forest. Why should he be coach of the year this year?
I think it's just his messages. I think when I first had my first conversation with him on the phone. Just like his energy, I think I've always mentioned every time I'm talking to anybody, any alumni or any Wake Forest fan, I'm always talking about just coach's energy. I think that's just very special, and it's something I've really never been around. Every meeting, sometimes guys might be dragging into a meeting, but you have no choice but to wake up because that's what we get to yell and everything, and that just gets guys motivated, and you want to play for that guy. So I think that when you have a coach like that who's just he motivates you so well and gets you ready to go every morning. Like you have nothing but to just go out there and fight for him, and so I think that's why we've had some success this year, and I think that's why a lot of people would say that about Coach.
On the note of messages, what's your favorite that Coach is constantly saying, or the one that you think of when you're thinking about those messages?
Right, I would say the biggest thing is just the chants that we do. I think we get in and someone gets in the front and they start yelling, the wake up, or they're throwing their hands up and we're all yelling. It's just I think those are things that really stick with us, and when Coach says anything about us going on 111, a really generic, basic phrase, but I think just the specific, just the way he says it and the moments he says things is really what's important for me, and it's just those little things that, keep you pushing out. For instance, this week, he just want us to go out there and lay everything else on the line. We have one more game. Guys might be banged up here or there, but, we have one more, regular season game that we want to go out on the end, so that's just the goal. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What's the team mentality, and especially walk us through the offensive line as y'all get ready for one final regular season challenge at Durham?
It's just to finish what we've been doing. We've done some good stuff, and we have another opportunity coming up this week. So go 1-0, finish with good physicality, and just make sure it's on tape.
Coach Dicker told us that he believes Saturday against the Delaware was probably Robbie's best game at quarterback. And of course, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. That means you guys did some good work too. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's my job to snap it to him so he can get going, and we did a good job protecting, giving him time. We did a good job with Azel's play calls, and we had some calls to God, some calls to Allah that really helped, some long balls. So yeah, Robbie played his butt off, and he's a good guy, good kid.
What's it like as an offensive lineman when you hear a trick play called and you're going to have to, I guess, kind of maintain and protect that pocket? A couple ticks longer, probably,
yeah.
Right?
Azel's orchestrating a few really cool plays and just understanding what's going on that play and how can I give the team enough time so we can succeed. Next, when it comes down to it, Coach is going to give us what my job is and how I need to execute, and as long as I do that, trick play is going to work.
How would you just kind of describe the lessons you guys have learned over the course of the season that you're kind of taking into this Saturday?
Lessons is a great word. Through all the battles we have, whether they're good or bad, you got to take those lessons and those learns and get better. And to describe really them all, you just got to be the most excited team to play when you go out there, and not just most excited, but most excited to execute. So, if we can do that this Saturday.
We were hearing a little bit about the wake up chant that you guys do before games. Is there anything that's like your favorite chant or favorite slogan that Coach has?
Coach is a rascal with all his different chants, and wake up's a great one. That's comes from Tanner Moku, shout out. But anything that gets the team going, whether it's Lely or Nando or Coach Witt, as long as the team's juiced and loving it, then I'm loving it too.
What do you feel like is the biggest challenge that a team like Duke and their defense kind of poses for you guys?
Throughout the season, I've kind of learned that the biggest challenge we have is ourselves. As long as we stay ahead of the chains, as long as we do our job, I don't really see too many challenges in front of us bigger than ourselves.
It seems like fans have caught on and started to really appreciate the, all we have, all we need chant. Is that one that you guys enjoy?
Yeah, that all we got, all we need is just a testament to, you could care about the things that go wrong or the people that don't show up, or you could love the people you got in the building and love the resources that you do have. And that's what it's about. Showing up on Saturday, you can't start thinking about the things that we don't have or ways we could lose. It's just about, the good things that could happen and the good things that we bring to the table. So, and I think the fans love it too. It's how you got to live life sometimes.
How's Devin Kylany this week? Like, school is in session yesterday and today, right?
Well, so, the School of Professional Studies here at Wake Forest goes on their own schedule.
Uh-huh.
So I got some big projects to finish up. I'm looking to get my master's when December comes to an end, so that's wonderful. And Devin Kylany, just had, as the year's winding down, Pacific Northwest weather on a Tuesday practice towards the end of his career. He's cherishing it. Devin Kylany's cherishing it.
What was senior night for you? I know it's different a little bit when you move around from school to school, but obviously you've gained an affinity to the staff and to this place. Any emotions?
Yeah, I gave 5 years of my life and my college career to Washington State, and when I was with the strength staff a few weeks ago joking, they were like, dude, it's only been 8 months. This time flew. I was like, 8 months? I feel like I've been here for 6 years. And of course, it's on the other side of the country and it's different, and we're repping old gold and not crimson, but I've been a part of a lot of teams and a lot of environments like this, and to really wrap it up with senior night and seeing my family and Lely on the 50-yard line, his family, it was a lot. Thank you guys.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Go Deeks.